like, I really often equate this to a marriage because it is such a deep, deep relationship.
Yeah.
And where the lines has to be clear.
Yeah.
So you would not move in, or I wouldn't advise it, that you like move in, throw your properties, throw your financial things, throw your things, and then 10 years down the line be like, oh, wait.
So when do you get a manager?
If you don't have anything to manage, you probably don't need a manager, and you're probably glamorizing the thing. Or glamorizing what it is to have a manager. Repeat, just because I've done it with somebody else, I've done it a particular way with somebody else, doesn't mean I'm going to use that way with you, and I should. And you should be very careful of anyone who also approaches you as an artist and says, I've made this and this and this and this and this name. Because that's not necessary. It's like
that doesn't tell me anything about what you can do for me. Hello, welcome to perFORM Music Incubator, yet another episode where we get to learn, to share, to discover, to upskill, basically just to become better artists and creatives working in the music industry. My name is Modani Drama Queen. I'm your host, and I'm super excited to introduce you to a good friend of mine and today's guest, Miss Igol.
Hello.
Hi. How are you doing?
I am amazing, actually.
You look amazing.
Thank you, as do you.
Okay.
I'm coming to see you. When you're coming to see a queen, you need to dress correct. Look the part.
I'm so happy to see you, Miss Igol.
Maybe
you could begin by just telling the audience who you are, what you do, and, you know, because we're going to be spending a lot of time today talking about artist management. So maybe you could just give them some background, Yeah.
So I'm Igol Moray Kubu. I'm a creative business scientist and trainer and consultant. What that means is I spent years studying business science, that's finance, operation, business development, working in corporate for a lot of multinationals, until my heart called me back to my artist spirit, towards my artist spirit journey. And so now I do all of those functions, but in the creative sector with a huge passion for management and management done right. And so that's been a lot of our intersection as well with the perFORM Music Incubator and just our personal sharing and journey stories as friends as well. So that's a big part I'm passionate about. So I regard myself as a servant of the culture. And so that's what I do.
And you are, and a damn good one. I'm going to start at the top, please.
Yes.
What is an artist manager? And perhaps more importantly, what is not an artist manager, right? Maybe some context for that is a lot of us who, you know, when we start our music careers or as we're developing our music careers, you know, this is a thing that we're told. It's like the manager is this like secret magical key that's going to unlock everything and like things start functioning and opportunities start falling through the sky because of managers. It's like this sacred, holy, my manager. You know,
I actually even wonder if people think that deeply. So first and foremost, I think if you consider the artist as your heart and soul, so as your business. So that's my background is in corporate. So a lot of the time I look at how the two worlds translate. So it's different terminology, but it's the same thing in essence. So if you're looking at your artist as your business, your manager would be your CEO.
The CEO of the brand.
So that's why an artist would believe that this is the channel or the mechanism that I'm going to also help actualize. However, also important to understand, the manager is not the business. The artist and the creation of the artist is. The artist's music is then the product that the business, that the CEO then uses. So the artist product being either the music, the artist brand, etc. So the fruits of your business is what now your CEO uses to walk along this journey with you of successful commercialization. Now, if you can still be an artist without a manager, but that also becomes very important where you decide that you're taking your craft in a commercial direction it means now you start treating yourself as a commercial entity. So I think that's the simplest way that also universally makes sense. So you are the business, your manager is your CEO, and together you are building out now this corporation of yours.
So what is your manager not?
Your
From years of experience, talk to us about the trenches. What are the things we come to and we're like, be my manager? Then when you listen, you're like, bro, that's not a manager. You're looking for you're looking for a PA, or you're looking for
your
a booking
manager
agent,
is not your personal assistant. But also, and I think where that misconstruedness comes in is where it is a journey of servitude.
Yeah.
But that's not your personal assistant. It is a personal relationship. But that's also not your personal assistant. That is not your therapist. That is not your parent. That is not your child.
Your rent payer.
That is not your rent payer. That's not your pimp.
That's not your investor.
That's not the person who blocks the babes or the guys trying to come to you. I've been asked to deal with a lot of things that managers don't deal with. So I know this. Your manager is basically, it's a soul relationship because the fruits of the artist are from inward and they're spiritual. It is a personal relationship. The artist is saying, come with me and buy into my vision, and you essentially are buying into that. So that's why I think a lot of the time those lines get crossed about what we are, who we are, what role we play. So that is the personal nature of the relationship makes it difficult. But yes, it is a professional relationship. It is about actualizing, taking your talent to now becoming a commercial talent, because you can produce music and not look at it commercially and never commercialize. That's also is fine. That also is art.
That is art.
But once you get now into a managerial relationship, it becomes commercial. So thinking about it, I feel like everyone should be asking, or every artist should ask themselves, is this what is considered an ask in a professional relationship? And that soon becomes guidance. So in a corporate world, I would not go to a CEO and be like, listen,
my printer is not working. Fix for me my printer.
Exactly. Or listen, wake me up in the morning for me to show up for the things I need to show up for. We are in a journey, which means you do your part and I do mine. So it is a relationship, which means both parties have a responsibility to act within that relationship. So it's not a parental child. So like the dynamics need to be very clear, because once you start having things like parent-child, you start having like different power dynamics that affect the relationship. So to ensure that there's no imbalance of the powers that basically throw the relationship off between artist and manager, is that understanding that we're doing this together and we're walking a journey together. Because once that power in dynamic already exists, dynamic exists, imbalance exists, once you now feel success, ego, money, all of those other things coming into the relationship, that foundation cracks.
Got you.
So that has to be so solid. Like, I'm buying into your dream, Mudoni. I believe in what you're trying to do. My soul is in it. Then when the other stuff comes, you and I have a solid foundation. So as artist and manager, we can get on every step and level up together.
Correct.
As we should.
Correct. Yeah. But then if you're my CEO, does that mean, so then we build real commercial terms. So like, we're working together. This is the time frame of your contract.
That's why there should be a contract to begin with. Let's also start with that.
Yeah, let's speak on that.
Because again, I have had a lot of artists who come and say, I had this manager and then this happened and then this happened. And then my first question is, what was your agreement? Because they come with the gripe, right? Like, I've been scarred, I've been wounded, but where were expectations managed? Where did we sit together and say
what did
we're
the contract
doing this together?
say? Yeah.
Like, I really often equate this to a marriage, because it is such a deep, deep relationship. And where the lines has to be clear. So you would not move in, I wouldn't advise it, that you like move in, throw your properties, throw your financial things, throw your things, and then 10 years down the line be like, oh wait, what are the lines and the agreement between what belongs to who, how we treat each other, blah, blah. So you would have a financial agreement, whether in writing or not, in any long-term relationship, marriage. If you are taking a life partner, you'd know how you're going to treat finances. You know how you treat each other. You know who's responsible and makes the last call and decision when it comes to certain things. Because the moment my husband and I don't have that, How it's going to trip us up is when there's a decision and then we're both in disagreement and then we now don't know how to act. Who makes the final call? What is the part where we compromise? So in an artist and manager relationship, it could be things like creative is the responsibility of the artist. So the final call. So I cannot tell you what to do on your music. However, I could advise strategically that we are going in this direction and this would be suited. However, the final call in an incident where we do not agree, if it's creativity based, then it could lie with the artist. So it could be like small things like that that just help us get things right when the situation is not smooth. Because remember, it's not smooth sailing.
Yeah.
So when you are at your most stressed, and I'm coming here and I'm saying, go perform here, go do this, go do this, go do this, and you've got, your energies are depleted, you're exhausted, etc. How do we deal with instances like that? Do we have channels where you can speak up and say, hi, I'm not okay. Hi, I need a break. Hi. So you also see artist and manager relationships break at the growth stage because we have not also, again, sat down and said, how are we going to treat growth? So how much can I want out of you? How does that look? So I've personally also been in relationships where, and they've had to even end, where an artist says, I've changed my mind. And you're sitting there, you still have a contract with time. So what do? Do you force this person to fulfill their contractual obligation? What does that look like now from an environmental point of view? So all those things, you're making a commitment to each other. So it's not even from one to the other exclusively. It is a commitment to each other. So really fine tuning the details and at the beginning becomes so important, just so that you rise with your manager, or else without a solid foundation, everything and everything's going to break.
Also, so that in case as you're on the rise together, you catch things that are not kosher.
Exactly.
You have a governance document that says this is the way we act. This is how you serve notice. This is how assets accumulated, etc. Okay.
And to tie it to our curriculum,
yes,
because the perFORM curriculum was really good. I think a lot of the teachings that are also tied to what we teach, it's also how to do it practically. So things like, it's not a conversation, it's a contract.
It's a contract.
Things like when our participants come in, we take them through MMEs, values, etc.
Ways of working.
Ways of working.
That right at the drum.
Then we have them set up their own.
Yeah.
So that's also not a practice that every artist will do, where they determine things like their brand values, etc. Things like that then help you know, as the journey goes on, what to say yes and what to say no to, because that's important. So if you, as Mudoni MDQ brand, said that one of your values is clean living or health living. I'm vegan. I'm not going to, this is what the messaging that I'm pushing through. As a manager now, I need to ensure that every engagement also aligns with those. So then we are not misaligned because we've got this value sitting here. So I can't now come back and say, please endorse this product when I know it's against your values.
Yeah,
and I love
so there has to be
that
an alignment
we teach that
of
from
values.
the beginning.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that we teach that from a program level, and then they get to do the individual artist ones.
Yeah.
And then once we now along the journey we're making decisions, things are very easy for us. What we say yes to, what we say no to, because as you're growing as an artist, everyone's going to want a piece of you as well.
Yeah.
And so first you want people to want a piece of you.
Yeah.
Then when people want a piece of you, everyone wants a piece of you.
Yeah.
So that discerning has to come from your values, what's aligned and what's not misaligned. So I really also enjoyed that we structured the program such that it emphasized on the importance of that, because that happens in corporate. Every company has mission, vision, values, blah.
Yes.
But
Focus areas,
artist brands,
we don't do that. We don't spend the time.
Exactly.
At which point do I get a manager, Eagle? When as an artist, because again, I really love what you said earlier. There's a commercial outcome to having a manager, because that's a CEO, that's a person spending time. So that means you're remunerating that time.
Yeah.
So when do you get a manager?
this is, I get, so I get asked this a lot in different ways.
Indeed.
So one is, can you manage me?
Yes.
And then like my first question is, how did you get to the point where you thought you needed management?
Right.
So you have a lot of artists who believe that it's part of what you should have as your toolkit.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily,
serious.
yeah, to be serious.
To be serious.
Yeah. And for me, especially because of how things have changed. So I think one, let's acknowledge that the music industry landscape has changed and is changing a lot. So the role of a manager is evolving quite a lot. So a manager that you would have needed 10 years ago versus a manager that you need now look very different. And that's because of the world being structured very differently. There was a time, maybe even 20 years ago, where having somebody who, is well networked on the ground, has the relationships with record labels, has all those things, is exactly what you're looking for, right? And then there also would be people who are like at the beginning stages and they're calling more an assistant type of role, a manager, which it's not. Because your manager is basically now this person that you walk with this longer, bigger journey vision with. So back then, that's sort of what you would have needed, because this is person who, is getting you into the market, breaking you into the relationship, getting you the distribution relationships that you need, etc. Now there's things that are much easier because of the digital space. So for example, you can distribute online. So now getting it out is not the issue, promoting it out there. So now you need more a manager whose focus also lies in the marketing side of things. So how do you get my brand? So how do you have brand knowledge? Because now even the role of what we were calling A&R has changed, because everyone is online, which means talent scouting also has changed. So even from that perspective, because you get managers who also used to wear the A&R hat on the label side, because that's even like your career, that has changed. So the manager that you need right now more than anything is really a business-minded person who knows how to act in the environment of the arts or in the arts terrain. And that is because nothing is now static. So you don't necessarily need someone who's going to be a history of music expert, blah, blah, blah.
Who can help you get into a record label.
Yeah, because that's not even the thing. Now artists can be successful without record labels.
Indeed.
But a manager who'd be able to know that, are you that type of artist? So now it's where you are at. I would say try find somebody with the business acumen and at a level that you are at too, or higher, or that you need, not at to, that you actually need to get to. Reason being, you have guys who will go for a peer who basically knows just as little as they do. There's no value in that relationship. So think of it as, if I was paying you, what would I be paying for? Because we know the same thing, right? However, you don't go into that relationship without knowing anything, because what's worse is now the stories of not understanding what I was getting into that we all hear the whole time.
Indeed.
So I would say you have to have done a bit of management or your own brand yourself. At this point, you have to be clear about what are your potential revenue streams. So when you come to me, don't ask me to find the money.
You're saying, I'm already cultivating this farm. It already has some fruit.
And I need someone to help me manage it.
Because that's
exactly what am I managing? So my first thing is, you need a manager.
What am I managing?
You need to bring me something that it could not be a registered company, but you need to bring me a thing that says, hey, right now I'm moving this way.
Yeah.
Because I'm putting in this work and, strategically, this is where I'm supposed to go. I know I will not have the time, the capacity, because I've done this myself. I know what it means to put your own promo together. I know what it means to do this and this and this together. And I know now I need you. How that helps is, one, you know exactly what you need from the person you're hiring. And so there's no bamboozling happening. And also with the other fields, because your manager is still not your public relations manager, is still not your, however, your manager and you are clear on what deliverables even come from everyone else that you engage.
The team that you're going to put, because this is your team leader.
Exactly.
The CEO is the team leader.
So now you also have to be clear that when I release, perhaps maybe I need to bring on somebody to help us with public relations. Perhaps we need a marketing firm to help us with a certain strategy.
Build campaigns,
Exactly. But you would need to know that, so you know the value of what you're paying for, because essentially you're also paying for the service, whether it's commission, whether it's salaried, you're paying for the service. To if you don't have anything to manage, you probably don't need a manager, and you are probably glamorizing the thing. Or glamorizing what it is to have a manager. So I've also seen that where people love saying, my manager this, my manager that. Then you deal with the manager and you realize this person is actually hurting the artist's career.
Correct.
So be very careful also getting a manager who's inappropriate too soon, because as much as you think it makes you look good, it could hurt your career by having an inexperienced, inappropriate manager. Because the thing right now, I've also heard from a lot of the global companies we deal with, your Sonys, your UMGs, etc., when dealing with a lot of African artists or even bookings, is management. Professionalism.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So...
Got you.
Why
so,
I'm part of perFORM.
Indeed.
Because I feel passionately about
part of the reason for perFORM. But then in that
Yes.
case, it sounds to me like as an artist, like first I'm doing the estimation of what's happening internally. What do I need?
Yes.
Because then maybe I don't actually need a manager at this
Could be a
point.
booking
Maybe
agent.
what I need is a booking agent. Maybe I need a project manager, somebody who can help me get
You
through.
might need
like,
a public relations manager.
Yes.
Because everything else is going smoothly.
Yeah.
So you're doing a DIY package on distro and you're getting some sort of like marketing playlisting support. However, on this other end, you're not securing the gigs. So then in that instance, what do you need more of?
Yeah.
If you have a lot of international conversations happening and you're not managing and you're like, oh, negotiations, etc., you could be like, okay, maybe I need a manager there. Or maybe I even need a business manager because that's also a different type of manager. Or maybe I need a tour manager. So I don't need someone full time, but I know when I travel, I don't like dealing with certain, because there's artists who are also like, you know what, I'm not of the business world. So when I engage in these negotiation, money conversations, etc., especially before performing, it throws me off. I don't want to deal with it. And then they'll take a tour manager, but outside of the touring time, they're happy to handle admin and do all of that. So that's also, the thing to look out for. It's not one size fits all for everyone. And I think we're also living in that space where we've stopped treating every artist as a generic execution as well.
Facts. Because I want to ask you something else, to wrap up this, sort of segment, which is, how do you know you're a good fit?
Yeah, I told you
How
it's
do you know?
spiritual.
Yeah. I just want us to kind of wrap this part up, just how do you know? So I'm ready for, so let's say I'm the artist now. I feel I'm ready. I've been building. I have my artistries on lock. I'm developing, outputs. I can see that I'm starting to yield some fruit. I'm starting to commercialize. I'm ready to make this into a commercial enterprise. Okay. So now I'm shopping for a manager.
Yeah.
What tells me, oh yeah, I found my person?
So you've done the work, which is one I would have said you start with doing, because you need to now be very specific about what you need. So just because someone has managed before or even managed successfully before does not mean they're right for you.
That's been my experience. I met people who are like really great at the work, and it's like, oh yeah, but you wouldn't be great for me.
Think about it, you're a niche. And like, I know also even talking about your brand, like one would say, okay, no, that's a very different brand. Like I honestly see a lot of brands, all brands as different, right? Yes, you could be very different from a lot of the brands we have in Kenya and East Africa. But I'd say everyone is different. So we'd be looking at the MDQ brand and now we're saying, what do you need for yourself? So, and now it's reputation aside, those things you also now go and do when you're doing your homework, like, getting references from other people that they've worked with, etc., etc. But as a start, those things you noted that are important to you and for your journey, when you're having that conversation, that's what you're looking out for. And I know a lot of the time we are there shopping, selling ourselves, and we forget that the person's also selling themselves. So even asking before someone sings your tune back to you, asking them to do a simple evaluation of your brand and where they would take your brand if they were working with your brand. You might agree and not agree.
A CEO.
Exactly. The same way you would recruit a CEO, you would interview multiple people. You would ask them, this is the company. how would you now take us from what would the 5-year plan look like? What would the 10-year plan look like? So CEO interviews are actually very practical. I've done one where they even take you through things like Excel tests to just test your level of skill of using things like programs. Why aren't you doing that in this professional relationship? So why aren't you asking someone for a potential one-page strategy? If they were looking at you as a brand, what could the next, if you're looking at a 3 to 5 year contract, what could the next 3 to 5 years together look like? And then there's no lying to each other. And you did not go and mouth what you need only for me to repeat it back to you.
Right.
But you also see where I'm at.
Right.
2, if I don't love your ish, I'm not, okay, this is also a personal thing, but I also believe it. If you're not personally in love with stuff, you cannot also exercise it out there or put it out there or convince anyone else to love it. I have to love it. To this day, every single artist, every single project I've ever worked on is so personal to me. Like, do you know when the song comes on, I literally scream out, that's my song. That's how personal it is. I was sitting in an Uber, a Soul Generation song came. I was like, that's my song.
Yeah.
Because everything I've worked on is personal.
Got you.
So if you're an artist,
true connection with that.
true connection with that person, with that product, I cannot work a product I'm not invested in. It is not. And it's not the song, it's the artist brand and what comes with it, your essence. So you know that thing you develop when you're doing your brand strategy and what you stand for, your values and all that. If as a manager, that doesn't speak to me about who you are, then it's probably not a good fit and I don't take it. But people do take it because there's money and all sorts of other reasons.
And they want to grow on my time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to be seen because I'm building my profile. Money.
So I also want to say, yes,
exactly.
I'm a manager of whoever.
Exactly.
Yes.
But where now you have to be careful is being very clear that I'm doing it for the right reasons. And the only way to know that is I feel like a blind test becomes one of the best things you can do. And as a manager test and saying, because artists really do go and say, and this is how artists will go and ask a manager. And this is how I get approached all the time. They make me listen to their music. They pitch for me, blah, 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 blah. You're trying to convince me so much. But hardly anyone asks me what I can do. When I stop the conversation and I start telling them about myself, it's almost like, yeah, it's fine. I want to work with you. But why I'm doing that is because once the going starts going, and now you see what means a lot to me, and it doesn't gel with you, now you're shocked. And I've had that before. Because things like punctuality, professionalism, showing up, blah, blah, like you actually know me personally, you know how I am about my time.
Yeah.
So for example, things like that also are meaningful to me. I'm going to work an opportunity on your behalf and you're not going to show up or show up half-heartedly. If I've not made that clear in the beginning and you did not get that, we are misaligned. So all of those things, like I said, nitty-gritties at the beginning, you must be sure of me that I can represent you, not because I've done it for somebody else, but because I'm interested in you. The other things just show that I can do the job, but it doesn't show that I can run your company. It shows I can run a company.
In the conversation, I'm the prize.
Yes, I can run companies.
Yes.
But can I run yours?
That's
the difference.
That's a word. Okay.
It's personal.
It's personal. Yeah. I think a thing that we often see in our growth is kind of like, okay, now I want the endorsements. Now I want the partnerships. Now I want the
I've seen
money.
Eagle do it for so and so. So
yeah. So I want to ask: is commercializing? Is that? Would you say that's the? Is commercializing the heart of the? Or is of the manager work, or is commercialization just one part of growth? What would you say if you were to condense the thing that a manager is ultimately responsible for when they come into a business?
So commercialization is a measurable type of growth.
Correct.
An easily measurable type of growth.
Correct.
However, it's not the only basis of the relationship. And again, that's a thing that we now come together and agree on what our objectives are. So just like you have your brand objectives, could be where your brand is. I don't know. The next thing for you is maybe you've never toured Asia and you're like, I've done Europe. I don't need a manager that can give me that, but I want to go where I've never been. So that could be, what is the strategy that then takes us there? So that could be not be commercially based, but how do we now export the brand into a new market, right? So that's still not a monetary, but a marketing brand identity. So how do we get your brand and position it in a particular space? So I wouldn't say commercialization, I would say basically business management, and that's not just commercial, because that also has to do with the long-term survival. We are building what does legacy look like for you, for the artist brand? So I'm not also just looking at right now, because like I said, we are treating ourselves as a business. So we are thinking, what happens when we can't make the one product? Does the business die? How does the business look like long term? When you're doing your SWOT analysis, what is a risk? And how are we mitigating that risk? So if one of the risks is Mudoni is an excellent dancer, a risk is you losing a limb. Have we built something in that strategy that says, oh, we'd be able to still flow with this, or we're building a catalog, and our whole thing is commercialization strategy is perhaps not commercializing just on events and tours, etc. And perhaps our long-term commercialization strategy is on catalog management and building. And what does that look like? Because you'd still be able to, because you need to, that's publishing, you need to be working an existing catalog and what that looks like in future and how we are building it. So commercialization is an aspect, but I would say overall is, what are the goals is it strengthening brand? What does growth actually look like?
Right. So
so you have
definition
to
of you have
so
to grow. Growth, but what does it mean actually tangibly?
Right. Because for you could be like, I don't care for earning the money. I'm going to get everything free anyway when I'm famous. So I just want my name out there. And the endorsements will be coming once my name is out there. So that could be a strategy that we follow, that, oh, actually, let's put in a lot of work on building something specific about your brand that stands out, because you'd be able to attract certain parties. So if you're like, I'm a humanitarian type of artist and I want to now speak to human issues, and nobody wants to book you for gigs because perhaps they see you as a little bit political, and no one wants to bring that kind of vibe to an event, then I would need to know which spaces would rather have you and are willing to have you and now pay for that. So it's, again, people think commercialization means I'm putting you on a stage, we're releasing music and earning from streams, etc.
You're getting me a brand endorsement.
It's niche, it's personal. And that's why we lack the creativity of thinking outside of approaching liquor brands for sponsorship every time we need money. Because we have not done the brand work where now you can actually look at the MDQ brand and start seeing other things come out and be like, oh, wait, she's actually really incredible in this sphere. Can we work with her as this type of brand? And then we end up flocking to the same people, same opportunities. And so again, I repeat, just because I've done it with somebody else, I've done it a particular way with somebody else, doesn't mean I'm going to use that way with you. And I should. And you should be very careful of anyone who also approaches you as an artist and says, I've made this and this and this and this and this name. Because that's not necessary. It's like
that doesn't tell me anything about what you can do for me.
It's like me coming and being like, I've worked at PwC, Hogan Lovells, Otterbock, blah blah blah. Those are all multinationals. But how I position it is, when I was there, these are my takeouts, and this is how I can use my learnings from those entities to come and serve you in this one. But what I don't say is I was successful there and therefore I can be successful. No, I'm not a prophet.
Oh my goodness, this is so illuminating. Okay, I want to ask you, you won't believe it, the time has literally flown. I can't believe we are coming to the end of our pod. But I guess in kind of parting, I'd like to ask you, so at this point, if you are a starting out artist and you want to build a degree of, shall I call it, structure around yourself. And if we were to take you at your word and say, hey, okay, so maybe a manager is not the first thing I'm trying to solve, kind of, could you just walk us through kind of just like the very beginning point, kind of just what's just the next immediate team that I need to build? Even as I'm aspiring to get into a point where I bring in a commercial manager, what can I build around me short term that can help me get to the point where it's valuable to have a conversation with you?
It's part of the exercise that you're doing to determine at what point and what manager or whatever you need. So you do that with your team entirely. And that's when you start needing things, right? So I've decided I'm going to sing. Yeah. So I've decided I'm going to sing.
Yeah.
So I start getting into studio. I know how to use, I figure I've Googled how to get my music on DistroKid. So I know how to do that part myself. I realize I need someone who now can master the thing, because all I knew is what to sing, to mix and master. Yeah. And then now I'm like, oh, someone needs to do cover art. And then, now the song is out. I need to be doing something. I've seen guys do stuff on their social media.
Like content.
Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How do you know? So I think naturally I feel like, and that's, I feel like the African artist, especially, or coming from an environment where there's lack.
Yeah.
Because when we don't have a lot of schools, we've got programs.
Yeah.
Why perform is necessary is because we don't have schools like your Berkeleys, et cetera, where you can have even artist management and you can be like, oh, let me go start there. So a lot of people really start by learning on the ground. And we've seen that with a lot of our participants as well. So what I've also encouraged is that you are starting out as an aspiring artist. I'm starting out as an aspiring manager. We should be forming those teams together. Not you're starting out, but then you want an ego before you understand how you exchange values with someone on that level. And the big thing in the creative sector, which I feel like we shouldn't let go of, even while we're building structures and formalizing, is our spirit of collaboration. You need what I have. Same way I need what you have. I need talent to manage. You need someone to manage the talent, because I need to learn how to manage the talent. So again, there's been the question of what qualifications does a manager have, which becomes really difficult to answer at any point in time, because the world is also shifting. It really is about a type of mind rather than academic experience, etc., that you're also able to take forward. So in those early days, and this is like, I preach this a lot, especially when I'm training, because guys feel discouraged, like I don't have budget to get a lawyer, a marketeer, and what blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm like, what happens with your circle of friends? The guy who's just finished law school and wants to go into entertainment law, that person doesn't just start out as an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah.
That person has to start getting experience working with artists.
Yeah.
They need to access artists. That person who's a photographer, who's starting out, needs subjects. That person who's a videographer, who's trying to get into music videos, also needs people to collaborate with. So first, bootstrapping, and that's literally a startup mentality for any kind of business. When I started my consultancy as well, and I couldn't afford to do anything to hire anyone, I did everything down to building my own site, because I got scammed by a developer online twice. And then I didn't even have the money anymore, and I had to figure it out.
Right.
So again, let's use that bootstrapping mentality as you would a startup entity to approach ourselves as artist businesses. So what would you do? You would do the things yourself. You would DIY. You would find collaborators. So same way, enter that community. You've got people in our incubator, and we saw this. How easy was it for us to put people into teams?
Yeah.
Because they needed each other.
Yeah.
Once you now find your own nuances and your lanes, you can start being very particular and saying, okay, maybe not this artist, maybe not this team, maybe not, but you would have had the experience.
Right.
I now only know what to say no to.
Because you took on things.
Yeah, because
so
I've
got
gone
to try.
Yes. Yeah. Now I know exactly what type of artist I don't want.
Yeah.
I know exactly what type of manager I am. I know exactly what type of person I want to walk a journey with.
Yeah.
But I had to walk many journeys and not find that for me to get here.
Yeah.
So again, let's be patient with ourselves and not expect us to also figure it out the first time.
Got you.
Yeah. And join the incubator. Guys, you have a network right at your doorstep. You have the best teachers accessible to you.
Yeah.
And your journey begins in the smoothest way possible. So I cannot emphasize this enough. us being a part of it is us solving the industry's problems that we have seen from years and years of doing this. So again, sign up. There's a waiting list.
Yeah.
But like, get into that perform program. You might see us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it will be an amazing program to be a part of. I loved being part of the journey. I loved imparting knowledge.
Yeah.
But I also loved seeing the people who are hungry and thirsty for this journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Miss Eagle, y'all, thank you so much for being on the pod with us. Thank you for everything you've shared. See you on another episode. Bye.